Welcome to the Full Vantage Podcast. I have Kelly Campbell, with us here today. She is owner of Nurture. Was that?
Yes, co-owner.
Yeah, co-owner of Nurture, which is where we're recording right now. And actually, that's where we record most of our podcasts. This has become home. These people are become really close friends. We're going to claim family soon, but all good things. Nurture is so unique. If you are in Denver and you want to check out a really cool place to have food, coffee, be inspired, meet really cool people, you need to come and check out Nurture. And what's the tagline? Nurture Wellness.
A well-care marketplace.
Well-care marketplace. Okay. And I need Kelly first. You need to explain what Nurture is, because if I'm describing it for everyone that's listening, that's a great tag, right? Well-care Nurture place. You can eat here. You can have coffee here. The coffee's amazing. The space is fascinating. You and your team are always tinkering with like things, and you're constantly doing things. From the outside, you wouldn't think this is what's in here. Just like you're driving by, you think, I wonder what that is. I guess that's maybe an office building, because there are that here. There's offices as well. You've got so many different businesses upstairs. You told me the other day, you're like, X amount of businesses. If you don't mind, like, how many businesses are here? Can you pitch like what this is when people walk in? Like what is Nurture?
Mm-hmm. Well, you've done a great job. You're now the spokesperson. But to dial in that elevator pitch succinctly, I'm still working on it, nearly 5 years in. So I need many floors for the pitch. But essentially, Nurture is, in its brick and mortar form, a container for entrepreneurs, both by way of hosting these businesses. We call them providers here. So this is anything from acupuncturists, massage therapists, mental behavioral health therapists, PTs, chiropractors, beauty service providers, estheticians, barbers, etc. So they host their office businesses or their businesses upstairs. And then on the first floor, I like to think about it more, for like a think tank or an incubator for people like me and you, creatives. And I've got, people that come from all across, various industries, if you will. But that's where our co-working membership, if you will, kind of creates that space for people to kind of tap in and find their flow, in which ways that I like to find my flow is through conversations like this, being able to move my body, being able to recover, and providing and consuming my fair share of nourishing food. I like to think of the cafe at Nurture as like the heart of the home. And so I take a lot of like pride and responsibility into that piece and how we get to make people feel. And so that's Nurture, in short.
Yeah, totally. I've got so many questions. First off, if you're listening to this podcast, you're going to hear about really, this is what I'm excited about. And I've been excited about this for this conversation. I was telling you about this earlier, is people I believe are going to be inspired from this conversation. Inspired to maybe think a little bit differently. Because from what I can tell is you are a creative to the nth degree. And what's really cool is I imagine there's been a ton of different iterations of this. So can you talk about, before we kind of go any further, can you talk about membership? Because it's like why did you went the membership route? You can be a member of Nurture, which I think is really unique. Because I think I've always said this, two of the best types of people at building community in cities are baristas and bartenders.
I would agree with that.
Because they're phenomenal at building a clientele of people that they build community with. You've done that here to another level in my mind. Because you do have what you call providers, people that rent space. And then did you work out here before we started this, or did you work out somewhere else?
I worked out here.
Yes, you did. You literally, what's so cool is like you showed up this morning. You probably did a little bit of work on the way in, a little bit of work when you got here, make sure everything was good. I'm just imagining. And then you were like, I'm going to go work out now before I'm going to talk with Trevor. And like you did Pilates here, and you've got like studios where people can work out. So cool. I was walking the other day. I was like trying not to get ran over because you had the CrossFit gym was like, in the back was like we're taking laps. And I was like, oh man, this is sick. They're like carrying a bunch of stuff, and it's so cool. So my question is, can you talk about membership? Why did you go that route, or like why is that an important thing to what Nurture offers?
Well, thanks for asking. But actually the original vision, which when you're talking about like the various iterations, that really rings true, because what I've realized is that there's a big difference between having a vision, especially in the community environment where you're, serving a community, and what the vision is versus what the community wants. And so when was in ideation mode, when Nurture was, dirt, and we're trying to raise money and get through permitting and all of that, my vision for how this space would be used and experienced is very different than the climate that we're operating in. For one, that's culturally, that's economically, but also just really what the community wants. I thought the cafe would be more of like an European urban essence where people are connecting more like this over tea, over coffee, enjoying meals together. But given that I could tell the COVID story, we all have one. But the same day that we opened is the same day that the city shut down in the city of Denver. And so we can kind of pin that, if you will, before we get down different holes here. But essentially learned that that creating memberships is what gave use cases or created like pathways for people to understand how to use the space based on how they were using it, not what my vision was, which requires a lot of just like detaching, if you will, from like, well, this is my vision. People should be using it this way, and kind of forcing it that way. And we all know, like, forcing, you don't get a lot of feedback in the positive way or the reaction or response that we're hoping for. And so membership became a mechanism to create a better experience for the people that enjoy being here. So they get to use more of what Nurture has to offer at just a better experience, if you will. But Nurture's still a public place. Like, you don't have to, pay to belong here or to come here or to enjoy the space. Again, it's just a tool to better enrich your experience while you're here, to get more out of it.
I love that, because I love your answer too. I feel like I'm going to say that a lot, so I'm going to try not to say it too much.
No, you can tell me.
No, you can tell me. Is you literally said one of the most important things, I think, in building any type of community is you let the people that you're trying to impact actually tell you how to help them.
Yeah.
How to serve them. Mm-hmm. How to meet their needs. Mm-hmm. And if you can do that, well, guess what? I'll pay whatever I need to pay to have my needs met.
Sure.
You've literally you're expediting the value, right? Like, it's like with water, okay? Sure, someone can maybe go find some clean water and do it themselves, but I'll pay a little bit every month to get some clean water and to get it running to my house.
Sure.
It's like, that's a necessity.
Right.
And it's like, in some ways, you've kind of pinned what you do here it's a necessity. Mm-hmm. Like, people are searching and they're hungry for this. Mm-hmm. Did you know that Denver's the third loneliest city in America? Did you know that?
Define lonely.
Yeah, I read this stat, and I think lonely is obviously is somebody's saying, hey, look, I'm lonely. I think lonely in this statistic was people lacking relationships. Mm-hmm. And they felt like they didn't have real relationships. Mm-hmm. So I think it's like Las Vegas, Washington, D.C., and Denver. And so...
Well, it's interesting. In all three of those places, what they have in common is there's a lot of stimulation.
Yep.
Like if I think about Vegas, or Denver with like the outdoor activities and the music, and there's so much happening that I imagine that you can keep yourself occupied or busy and it feels fulfilling, and you're in community and it's social. Yeah. So it kind of, you get some of those like dopaminergic waves running through your system, but that settles and then you're like, I want something deeper, something more meaningful, something more sustainable, perhaps. Not to say like that those things aren't, but that's interesting and it makes sense.
I like how you pitched it too, because it's like, I do think the outdoors is, just because you can go play doesn't mean you have someone to play with.
Totally.
And it's like, oh wow, yeah, you're right. It feels like I should just be able to go into the expanse and the fun and the environment and I'll just find people. But it's like, no, it's got to be more intentional than that. And so what I feel like here is you're providing a space to cultivate community. And it's like, oh, thank you, Kelly. It's like, take my money. It's like, I need a place to work, or I need a place to create. I need a place to think. And so what do you think this iteration is? How many iterations have there been of nurture to
I
this
stopped
one?
Counting, I'll be honest, because then you start stacking those, and one can see that as like, well, that didn't work, or that didn't work. I like to view it more as like continuous refinement. Ooh. Just like your grandpa in his garage, like finding a better place for that nut or that screw or that, and everything's that's care, and that meticulousness, I think, is what continually refining and enhances. One, proves to me that I've got something worth shining, and then also being open to that constant sort of feedback loop and hearing what would make that better, without seeing it as failure. Because I'll be honest, in the beginning I'm like, well, that didn't work. Like, why weren't people receptive to that? Kind of what I was speaking to with like my vision and bringing that to light, or I can't say I have a team. And what the community wants. And so in terms of tangibly, in terms of membership, this is our third iteration. And I love this one the most, but then you have another child and you're like, well, wait, in terms of iterations. But this one makes sense, at least for now. And I do see, in terms of future iterations, recovery having a bigger place.
Oh, come on. I'm here for that.
Let's go.
I'm here for that. There's really actually not just real quick. There's not anything close to here that has a high quality.
Yeah, and I feel recovery. Like we're a little bit like behind in that way, if you will, but
you're ahead in the fact that we are
where we are. I mean,
yeah,
sure.
It doesn't matter.
There's a bunch of great places in town that are doing iterations of it, but kind of doing it like the nurture way, where there's doing those types of things. They're grounds for connection and deeper connection. And I believe, and if there is a different word for suffering, maybe you have a different word. If you could take suffering and dilute it in half, what is that word?
What it takes to get what you want.
What it takes to get what you want. That's not one word, but that works.
I'm so sorry.
No.
If I take it,
because suffering sounds so like dramatic.
It does. It's a price.
Yeah, the price you pay.
Price.
Okay, I like that. So in that context, it's like I like to, challenging workouts, suffering, if you will, in a sauna or a cold bath with people that inspire you and encourage you. Like, talk about the opposite of loneliness. Those are opportunities through that challenge when you really get to know somebody. Like, where are they willing to dig? Where are they willing to go? How do they respond to those challenges? How do those challenges integrate into their friendships? And they create bonds. They really do. I mean, climbing mountains with friends, like, it's hard. And then you get to celebrate. And so you get to have like all of those waves of experiences. So back to the original question in terms of, I don't forget, I may just kind of like deviate, but I'll make my way back.
It's good. You can still got me on the definition of suffering right now. So
yeah.
I could keep going.
Price. That was really good. So many iterations with membership, with the cafe. thought I would try on like a dinner time service on, like not it, and so it's always like that tricky balance of trying to, optimize, especially in brick and mortar space where expenses are high and the buildings we're sitting here. How can I optimize opportunity to bring people in and experience nurture, versus like, what do people see nurture as, and how do they want to use it, and doubling down on that, which is where the different iterations come from, is responding to that.
I love how you transition from failure to this is not final.
Yeah.
And I may never stop iterating, because why would I stop?
Right.
This
Well,
is
you
a
can't.
blast. And I can't.
You can't.
And I
I mean, I
can't.
could, but that to me then is more of an end of the road, which doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that either. But I think being able to be nimble, being able to adapt, these are characteristics that I think support sustainable businesses, relationships. I mean, you name it, but being able to evolve.
Well, when anything starts, when it has to do with life, which you're trying to cultivate life here, and you want it to grow, is what I'm saying. Anything that you want to grow, you cannot settle, because the moment you start settling, the moment the thing starts dying.
Yeah. It's just that sort of like, what's the word for it? Yeah, we can call it settling. Stagnation.
Yes.
People are evolving
Status
so much
quo.
that they want to see things evolve.
Keeping it the
with
same.
them, for them. Yeah.
And evolve is a great word too.
Yeah.
What is it going to become?
Sure.
You said this, and I don't want to overlook this. What is the nurture way?
The nurture way.
You said that a second ago,
Yeah.
and I was like, I feel like that's an actual thing. Have you ever used that before? You said you were like, just to remind you were like, that's not the nurture way. What is the nurture way?
Sure. Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so when I think about like the nurture way, this is loaded. Just like every question you ask, I'm like, well, there's not just one sentence
I
to
know.
respond.
That felt so much deeper.
Yeah.
That felt like, whoa.
Yeah.
When you said it, it hit for me. I was like, oh, there's going to be a way.
Yeah.
There's a way that you guys operate. There's a way that you guys focus. There's a way that you dream. There's a way that you implement and iterate. How would you define the nurture way?
Yeah. Well, I love that, because now you just created like a two-headed dragon. So we'll answer one at a time. Sorry. No, it's good. But I would think like the nurture way, or like the nurture essence, at least that we're hoping to evoke or to deliver, then people get to feel and experience that, whether it's subconscious or conscious, is that it's imperfect. I mean, look at the ceiling. Like it looks like it could fall down at any moment. Like it's not perfectly. How is the word? Like think of a medical, like sterile, cold environment. We want this to feel like raw and imperfect and unfinished and a work in progress, but there are the bright light, the plants, like things like this, that when you talk about like the nurture way, is that it's accessible. It's for everybody. You don't have to look a certain way to belong here. And so, do we have like green juice and yoga classes and things like that? We do. It's true. We do, but it can also be a place for discovery and curiosity and, all sorts of different opportunities to get closer to yourself, so you can get closer to other people. And that's really kind of what's happening in the background, is where can we create opportunities for that to happen. So that's a little bit of the nurture way, if you will. The other piece that you spoke to is a little bit of that. And this is more, I would say, it speaks to my entire team, my business partner, our lenders, our investors, like the providers upstairs. There's this sense, and maybe it's from like the COVID offspring that we are, or something, which I've tried to put that to rest. Sometimes it comes up when we're storytelling, but like that grit and that like we will find a way, because we thought we were gonna have to close our doors before we even opened, because the city shut down and we can't operate. And when you have when our business is built on connection and you can't connect, it's hard. It's hard, especially in that brick and mortar form. And so I would say like the nurture way is finding a way, and trusting and surrendering and focus, I would say that rings true. Especially now. I mean, now I say that now, but it's always, like it's not always easy, but that's what makes it like rich and exciting.
I imagine that you probably already had it. This just revealed it more.
Sure.
I think how would you define grit?
How would I define grit? I would say grit is that tenacious spirit of acknowledging that this may sound backwards, it works for me, is that nothing is permanent. And so when everything is like permeable and almost temporary, for me, that gives so much room to like propel and advance and to drive and to give it one more, whatever that means in the context, because nothing is permanent. You know what I mean? Like, so you have to keep up that energy and that consistency and that drive. To me, that is grit. Is like, there's no sitting on like, oh, I've made it, like that doesn't mean there isn't room for celebration and to, relish and bask in all that you've, created and where you've come from. But to me, I think that's how grit is born and fostered.
Have you ever read the book Grit? Angela Duckworth, I'm pretty sure, is the author.
No, but I've seen it on Mike's bookshelf. So
of course, yeah, no, he would have that book.
It's there.
He would have that book. It's a good book. I'm just trying to remember. I read it quite a few years ago, and I'm trying to remember how she described it. But you did a great job of like that. I like how you described it, because it's like the ability to. When I think of grit, I think of sandpaper. I don't know why.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, and it's like
it's not smooth and
No. It's not smooth. It's not perfect. It's gritty. It has an element that sticks and keeps affecting the thing around it.
That's a great definition. And that essence that you're talking about, that's willing to like rub up against something, that's not afraid to like shoot your shot and put yourself out there. Yeah. That's gritty. And I think in the best way. And I think grit is a byproduct or an arm from confidence. Yeah. It's hard to be gritty if you're not confident. You have to have some degree of self-belief, and your spine has to like, sit a certain way to be able to, I think, have that grit.
I can almost feel grit more than I can describe it.
Yeah. Or the English language is limited.
Yeah. I can almost feel it, or even, sometimes when you get sand in your mouth, that feels a little gritty, it's like, I can almost feel it. Where does that come from for you? Where's that? What's that source? How did that come out of or come into your life?
Failure. I mean, you gotta, honestly, not being afraid to try, I think loops back to confidence. But I think knowing that, back to like the temporary element, that like, even think about your sandpaper example, like you rub it long enough, it's gonna get smooth. Yeah. Like it's temporary. That is a temporary like element of that texture, that experience, And so I think for me, it's knowing that whatever is happening, for good or for bad, is temporary. And so for me, grit is built by, do I want to ride the waves when they're really high and everything's going great? Yes, I do. But also when in the depths, when things aren't going right and like things are scary and really challenging, for me, finding somewhere like in between, and not just meaning like I'm coasting,
Right.
but like being not pulled in these sort of ways. For me, I think can help establish just like grit as like a characteristic versus like a gritty period. Or does that make sense? Because you're always going to have that friction in your life anywhere.
No, I think, friction. Yes. Resistance. Friction, resistance.
We need it.
Yes,
It
we need it.
shapes us.
And it's not going to stop.
Right.
It's a part of the human experience. It is everywhere around us. Mm-hmm. Good luck getting over gravity. It's like it's there.
Sure.
It's you can't see it, but you feel it.
Right.
And it's like I think that's a really healthy reminder. When you think of, do you care to talk about like a little bit of like how did Kelly get to this place? Because I'm sure like it was a breeze, life was, and then you got to this point where you started nurture and it was a breeze, and it's just like everything's just smooth sailing for you, and because that's obviously true.
That's just
always.
how life works. So.
Yeah, that's how life
most of
works.
us.
We're talking about grit, but it was smooth sailing for you, and but like that's not true. But people maybe look at nurture, or they look at you now and they get to know you on this side, and it's like, wow, Kelly has it all together. She's perfect. It's like, well, it's like people, we assume, but we see people's awards, if you will, or accomplishments, and we think, man, must be nice. And it's like, okay, cool, time out on that. But like, who was Kelly? Who is Kelly? How did Kelly get here? Where did nurture come from? I just would love maybe even just like some personal backstory. I'd love to hear kind of like what are some big formulaic moments of your life?
You're so good at asking so many questions at once in the
I am
best way.
so sorry. I'm
No,
not
it
trying to
gives you-
ask too many.
No, it's amazing. It gives you lots of things to choose from. But I would say in general, by the way, of how we perceive others, and the way that our brains are so well or poorly wired to romanticize how other people are living or doing or experiencing. And unfortunately, like that cynicism in our brains, like so easily creates that like comparison element, which what is that saying? Is a thief of joy.
It's a thief of joy.
Yeah, I will say that. And I get caught in that. Like, well, if it was just like that, or how come?
Why doesn't my life look like
Sure. And that's a trap.
When am I going to get my picture?
Yeah, that's a trap. But just to, you'd ask a little bit about stepping stones, if you will. But somehow it's helpful for me to compare, like the human design elements and like Enneagram and things like that. Sometimes
sure. What's your Enneagram?
I'm a 7, which means that like I'll be super excited about something, and then it's like, okay, that was fun. Super excited about it. Okay, that was fun. And kind of like pluck from it what was enjoyable, and then I'm like, that was good, and and move on. And so in some ways that's really served me. And I will say in nurture and being able to hold attention here is sustained because it's diverse, like the cafe, the membership, movement, providers, the market, like there's so much happening. But I've really been able to, and I think this is probably cultivated through my community growing up, my family influences and things like that, but had this this willingness or appetite to explore things that I was passionate about or excited about, and gave less weight to societal expectations. I didn't want to go to like the, big college and have the college scene, and then, and then go work for somebody and crawl the corporate ladder of 9 to 5, something like. From a very young age, none of that appealed to me. Like I tried it, like I forced myself into that office with no windows and working for them, I really did. I tried. I thought that that's like, where I needed to be. And I would say like one real like catalyst or tipping point for me is I was working for Project Angel Heart, which is an incredible organization in Denver that provides, meals for those coping with life-threatening illnesses and diseases and so forth. So, and I'm sitting in the office and I'm like, I feel like I'm doing fulfilling work, but I was entirely unfulfilled. And I was like, I want to travel, and I want to feel like more of like a direct impact with the community that I'm interfacing with. And so that took me through like a 6-year journey through Eastern Africa and Southeast Asia and India. And I ended up partnering or meeting a group of soccer players that played in the UK, and they ran an organization called Oscar India, which was similar to Project Angel Heart, but different by way that they used football or soccer as a way to empower sort of like at-risk or underprivileged youth. Yeah. So I was able to run soccer camps and then go to like galas and raise money. And it was fun. It was adventurous. It was early 20s. And so I got to like, be in these like very, very rural villages surrounded with like the happiest people. And from our definition, they had nothing. Like they're nothing, but they were happy, and they all had a purpose in their ecosystem. And so it was like, wait a second, like we're in, back in like the rat race of the States, and trying to like ascend and grow and succeed. And I was like, well, wait a second. The woman who makes chapati, which was like the most memorable, top 5 like most memorable moments of my life, learning to make this bread for her family, was the most joyous person I had ever met. My gosh. And so it's like understanding where we find meaning and purpose, and staying in those places that we feel valued and that we can contribute and have an impact. I would much rather know that I'm like impacting in a positive way, like the 4 neighbors surrounding me, than trying to have an impact globally or internationally in affairs and things like that, which are important, but like staying focused, in those ways, I would say contributed to me finding things that really brought me joy and felt like I could have a direct impact. So spending that time with the Project Angel Heart that led me to Oscar India, and I was able to meet and be around like all sorts of different cultures. And I ended up in Chiang Mai. I had a camp in Chiang Mai with this group of young girls, and got really into Thai massage. So after work, I would get these Thai massages where you're sitting like on the street, and you're basically like on a mat, but like street side, and getting like your body contorted, and they call it sort of like lazy man's yoga. So you're getting like the benefits of yoga without having to do yoga. Anyways, so I got really into yoga, got licensed and certified there, came back to the States, got licensed here, went through programs here, and opened up a studio here. And so again, like having that, I felt like I was helping people, seeing the impact in their life. I was changing, their lives and things like that. And then I found that also it wasn't sustainable. So I'm like, I was giving it heck and putting a lot of heart and energy into every one of my clients, and, doing body work 10 plus hours a day is like not it, turns out. And so, less is it, but not in the way that I was doing it. And so what I found, I was like, well, Thai massage is great, but people need these other modalities. And so I ended up bringing in like an acupuncturist and someone that could do Reiki. And so then I also learned that, okay, well, also now my expenses are covered. And now anybody that I get to work with, it's just profit. So I learned sort of like the business side, and where I was building a community and a collective of people that we could help more people now. Yeah. My expenses are virtually obsolete now, and I can find more joy in helping less people and build depth in my practice and my craft, as a practitioner and as a budding businesswoman. And so I was able to I think of that business that I had just in the Highlands here, is it 32nd and Lowell, is sort of like a mini nurture, multiple providers under one roof, sharing our clients, providing referrals, and then creating a sustainable business model simultaneously. And so I would say when you mentioned baristas and bartenders as being like community builders, my background's hospitality. Spent 20 years in the hospitality background. So between traveling, I always found a home in those spaces. And that built, I say, a lot of my confidence and capacity to be able to like connect or just speak with people is being in that arena, and being in a service mindset. And so I worked for Juan Padro, if you know Juan in the neighborhood. I feel like he's like the unofficial official mayor of Denver. Juan Padro.
I'd love to meet him.
Yes, I'd introduce you. But he's a restaurateur and owns and operates a lot of restaurants in the city. If you're familiar with like Senior Bear, Mr. Oso, Bardo, Sloan's.
I know all those.
Hello Gorgeous, Forget Me Not. It's all the beautiful cocktail bars and things like this. But he's pure heart. And so his business is led from the front, I think, as one would say, and about really tapping into people's passions and let their pursuits follow. So he was a really big influence for me for starting these other businesses, consults and mentors me in my current business. But having somebody in your corner and really believing in you that you will like completely raw, vulnerably be able to share your fears, your perceived failures, and somebody that's able to just like lift you up and then allowing to be lifted up, I'd say is critical. And so he played a huge impact in being able to explore these different business ventures and helped me. I started and sold another business. He helped me kind of like value that and pitch it and sell it, which was what allowed me to take that capital and invest in here. And so just kind of like taking tiny crumbs, having people that believe in you along the way and making sure it's something that you care about. If you don't care, good luck. Good luck. So I'd say those are a few of the stepping stones to this project, at least.
A few. Shoot, those felt like all cornerstones. Those felt like huge, massive rocks of experience and understanding and trial by fire and years of work to get to where you are today. I think it's obvious that you've learned so much from around the world, from people that have very little to people who have a lot. And I'm thinking about the person who is a barista or the person who is a bartender or the person who loves hospitality. Mm-hmm. I went through a season of learning as much as I could about hospitality because I feel like that is actually at the forefront of what we have to offer each other in friendships, in relationships. And I think being generous when it comes to hospitality is maybe the essence of friendship.
I like that connection a lot.
And so, because when you're generous, that is being hospitable.
Sure.
You're trying to meet people where they are, help them with what they're going through to get to where they want to go. And you're seeing them and they have a space to be known. And it's like, wow, what a generous thing that you have to offer. And I feel like that's maybe
I really like that comparison. That's beautiful.
The essence of friendship, maybe, know, and it's like,
Well, it's like that anticipation too. And there's that, I love the idea of anticipation as it relates to hospitality. And then when you correlate that to friendship, that's incredible because we get to be in tune enough with, and in our friendships, like what would they need? What would they want? What would be that one thing that would just like kind of tip them over in the best way to be like, oh my gosh, because in hospitality, it's like I want to know where can I have an impact on how people feel when they think about, nurture when they're not here, or when they're talking about their friends. And it's the same in friendship. When they put their, head down at night and they spent time with you, how do they feel? What is like the residue that you've left? And
Residue sounds gross.
That's not it. As soon as I said, I was like, how do I put that back in? I can't.
No. But I agree with you. It's the feeling.
What lingers? What sticks?
Yes.
What stays? That is,
Residue doesn't
energetic.
have to be bad because it's something that you've left. It's something that you have left on their life.
Yes.
With them.
Impact. Have
Impact.
you? Yes.
It's been said. I love this quote. People hardly ever remember what you said. They always remember how you made them feel. Mm-hmm. Always.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. And then it's like, if, one of my favorite quotes again is, no greater love than to lay your life down for a friend. And I was talking about that with someone this morning who was like trying to cultivate this deep, meaningful relationship. And I'm like, okay, yes, laying your life down in sacrificial moment of like, my life for theirs. Okay, that's incredible. Not diminishing that. I'm saying there's another opportunity though, that is something we have to do, that we can do every day. That's not maybe a one moment where we give our life, but an intentional, I'm going to put my life on the back burner and put their life on the front. I'm going to make much of them. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying that there's also another way to look at it.
Well, right. And there's, I think we were talking earlier about some of these like loops, that we find ourselves in,
Right,
and being able to find space to experience the reciprocity that giving allows. So in the hospitality industry, or in friendships, or any relationship, or the way that you interact with the person that's bagging your groceries, or any strangers, like letting there be an exchange, even energetically, where you at that moment they feel like they're the only ones there. It's eye contact. It's slowing down to open a door. Those tiny gestures are monumental. And then when you think in friendship, when you're holding a container where somebody, like, you're needed. And even the feeling of being needed is incredible. And I know maybe when you're, being aware of your audience, I'm a parent. You're a parent too. There's a degree of being needed that it has its challenges. When you think of like a friend that's calling you, I need you, and they're looking to you to share some sort of insight with them that you've got their back, that's a big deal. Just the same way that I think it's a big deal that somebody chooses to come in here and let me serve them coffee. There's a lot of really great coffee in Denver, and great opportunities to co-work or host your business. And the fact that they choose us is an honor. And so holding that like tightly and with a lot of honor, I think is a good place to stay. That can remain true. That doesn't have to be temporary.
No, it doesn't. And I think that's a part of what makes a full life, a beautiful life, is being able to color it in with other souls, other relationships, other people. It's like, oh man, when I think of what it really means to live a full life, it's like, I think of names, I think of stories.
I like that.
And it's like, yes, that's full.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And it's like, on your journey, you have, moments of care. And you've used the word care a few times, and I think that's a huge part of your life, because you actually do that. I think you practically put that into action. You're not just talking about it, you're living it out. It's this idea of like, the best way to write a book is to live it first. Well, you're doing the first. You'll probably get to the writing part. You're probably already writing, whether you know it or not. But it's like, I think that's really meaningful. Somebody is a barista, somebody is a bartender, somebody's in the hospitality industry, and they can't even begin to fathom what nurture is for their own life. How would you encourage them where they are to not settle, But like, what would you say is some really practical steps for like, I actually love being a barista. I actually love being a bartender. I actually love being in the hospitality industry, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
How would you encourage them in that hospitality industry? Because I believe the hospitality industry is overlooked. But the way that the world is going, the hospitality is actually what we need most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the lifeline between
Yes.
things of when our life becomes sort of more and more convenient, thanks to technology and things like this, where everything can, be shipped to your house or be done for you in these different ways. I think that, I hope that not everybody's going to have an espresso machine in their house and I don't think people are always just coming for the coffee, and so, what I would encourage or say is that, at least what we practice here is part of like the vetting process, if you will, to make sure you're, a good candidate and that you'll find success on our team, is that like full embodiment that we are not clocking in and just clocking out and going through the motions, like for less of a better phrase, like full tush in when we are here. And like, let this be a place or wherever your place is that you get to work, like a place where you get to like just focus on that and just be in that present moment. Like when you're here, you don't have to worry about, anything else that is going on in your life. You focus on what you're doing here, which means like you want to make the best latte, or you want to deliver that, whatever that is, with so much pride and intention to let it mean something. Because sure, you can go through the motions. These are mechanical things. And in a way, we like to think that the things that we make is science. The way that we deliver it is art, And so you get so much room for expression and to be who you want to be, or try on being somebody else that day. Like you're not committed to being any one way. And that's where there's so much room for agency and autonomy in the industry that I think is really incredible, because there's such a balance of that right brain, left brain happening, where there needs to be structure. It needs to be like sort of this way, in terms of say like the recipes and consistency, because people want that. Yeah. But the way that you get to show up and all the space around it is yours, and that to me is exciting, and letting it mean something. And so, I mean, it's like I talk to my son about the way he cleans his room. Like, do it with care, and then you'll feel really proud. If you're rushing through it, if you're just trying to get things out the door, like put your name on it, like put your stamp on it every time, Yeah. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't with my kid, I'll be honest.
Sure. Sure. They're in process.
Yes. But I would say, letting it mean something, taking pride in your work, and being able to be present enough to see the impact that you're having. Like I will deliver a dish, hope you enjoy it, walk away, and then I'll turn around to experience their experience. Like, do they like it? How does it like light them up? And that's a different pace. Like you are slowing down, and that can happen when you still have, all these other guests to serve, but being able to be hyper present with that. And that translates, I believe, in any industry, is creating and savoring moments where you've had an impact.
Oof. Okay. So here's what I am hearing, what you're saying, because I think it's very important. Did you live today with any regret? If you could go back, could you have done it better? Mm-hmm. Could you have done it with more intentionality? Mm-hmm. Because in reality, if you're trying to make an art of something, it's how intentional you're going to be that gives it its value.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so if you're going to take it to the next level, how could I be more intentional? Mm-hmm. How could I live in this moment without regret? Mm-hmm. To where I don't necessarily need to go back and try and redo it. Not saying not get better, but I'm saying, did you give it everything you had that you had in that moment?
And what you're speaking to there, like what you had, for me is more of like, it's broader, because understanding, and we can keep it contextual to this environment, that you're part of an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so you are required, you matter, and like your contributions are significant. And when that little system breaks down, like there is an impact, like negatively or positively, and so knowing on any given day, which requires, again, that like attunement to yourself to be able to say like, hey, I want to be able to give it to 100% today. I'm kind of operating at like 80% today. I've had, these rough things happen. Communicating with your team, letting your team support you, because then that you're creating that space for when they're feeling at 40% or 50%, but knowing that you can still show up and your team's got you, and being able to share that, because you can't redo yesterday, like you were talking about. You've got today, and sometimes you can't give every day 100. You just can't. Like I can't. I'll speak for myself. You're Superman.
No. If we're going back to the nothing's perfect,
yeah,
we're not perfect. It's an impossibility.
Sure.
So I'm with you 100% on that.
Yeah. So I like knowing that like you're part of a team, a collective, a community where like you get to show up and give it heck every day because your team depends on it and depends on you. And then there can be those days where like, we got you, we got you. So
yeah. That sounds like the nurture way, by the way.
There it is, the nurture way, the imperfect.
Yeah. Well, I just think that you just keep describing the culture that you're trying to create with your teams. Mm-hmm. And I think honesty is the thing that you're hitting on. It's like, hey, let's be real. Let's be honest. Yeah. Because we can't step into being blessed or being favored or stepping into the victory if we're not honest about where we're beginning.
Yeah, just where we're at today.
The person that's being fake can't step into victory.
Sure.
The person that's being real can. Yeah. Because they can actually move forward.
Right. Well, and they can see it and be real enough with themselves and each other.
What the needs are.
Yeah.
What the goals are. What it's going to take.
Sure.
And if we can talk about what it's going to take, then we can actually get to where we want to go.
Sure.
Because that's reality.
Yeah. And what we're good at. And where we can contribute and what our real competencies and gifts are and where they aren't, so we can delegate those or choose a different person that can thrive in those spaces. And
okay, so how did you maybe find Juan Padro, your coach?
Yeah. So I'd say he's more of like my sensei or mentor, or somebody that's like that person in your corner. I worked for him. He was my boss. He was my boss turned, he's kind of like a slaughter, if you will, of like, he's many people's best friends, but he was like my best friend. Sort of like that closeness where I could be like really honest and vulnerable with him around where I didn't think I could show up to the plate. How was I going to like close that space or like that delta between where I wanted to be and where I was, lack of confidence or something, these different ways. And just helping me get out of my way and see a clearer path. So sometimes your coaches, your mentors show up in these different ways that you don't expect them to, or you're not necessarily like soliciting or seeking, but rather oftentimes they're all around you if you're willing to like let your guard down, realize you don't have it all figured out, you need help, so I said that's how, and that was 10 years ago, and he's stayed in my life in that way.
So you found a coach out of being truthful and giving it your all. Mm-hmm. And I think that those two characteristics, not everyone's going to be able to be our coach, but the next person maybe that's a little bit ahead of us, or that's somebody we could admire, or somebody that we could be more like that is a really healthy place, I believe, to say, hey, would you help me in this area? And someone that pours into you, or someone that helps you and encourages you, is so very powerful. Mm-hmm.
And that loves you enough to be honest with you.
Yes.
So you have to sit with that honesty as well, because sometimes it's hard to hear some of these things, but knowing that they love you enough to be able to share things that may, temporarily hurt your feelings,
Yeah, and it's like if you can gain their wisdom and gain their friendship, then maybe we can step into a different type of relationship where it's a mentor.
Yeah.
And where it's someone that's like, well, isn't that what friends are? They actually kind of mentor us through life.
Sure.
They help us get from where we are to where we want to go. Not because we're forcing them to, but because they want to, because they care about us, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Speak to care, because you've mentioned it a lot, and I brought this up earlier, but like, why do you care?
I would, and I love the broadness in that, but I would say that one of the most, I would say, beautiful elements of being a woman is the natural. And I believe this to be in men too, but that women have is that like that nurturing, caring capacity. And capacities vary and change in seasons and things like that. But allowing that, especially in a business or professional environment where, there's kind of this expectation that we show up with this different kind of rigidity, or that like not caring is cool, or just like kind of brushing things off, or like not letting it mean something or be a big deal, or caring that it isn't cool. I sort of like to sit in that space and let that be like a powerful thing. I think care is really powerful because it shows that you can be present and in tune, see it and deliver on it. Okay. And I think that really matters, and it feels good. I think that it feels good. And so that's why I care, because there's a reciprocity in it.
No, that's good. And I think you said this: if you don't care, don't do it.
Yeah.
And you are passionate about nurturing, and which I love. I just realized it, like that's the name of the place. And you're passionate about, and I sense this, is you're passionate about, yes, hospitality, yes, people, but you're passionate about like nurturing something that maybe doesn't exist yet, or nurturing something before it actually becomes what it was made to be, or whether it's nurturing an idea, nurturing a small business, nurturing a new relationship. And it's like, whoa, now it's like, oh, I understand the care piece a little bit for you. And it's and where you're coming from. And I think that's powerful. I think you're right. People play the game of I don't care. But if we're honest, we need to care.
Or if it's not coming quick enough, or in a way that we expected it to, kind of back to like original vision, it's like, well, I didn't really care about that anyways, or it wasn't important, or we readily make these like sort of cozy blankets of kind of like excuses and things like that, where it's like, actually I did care. That really hurts. I'm really disappointed. And where now? So I think like caring is a capacity to be able to experience those different feelings and let them all happen, but not get in your way. I think there's a way where like those feelings are, become obstacles or blocks, but rather just letting them be sensations and acknowledging them and pressing forward. Kind of the linear aspects of me comes through in that way, where it's like you just gotta.
Someone that cares a lot and something negative happens, it could really get them down, especially a 7. It could really hurt.
Yeah.
And be hurtful. So how do you not let failure stop you? Or how did you reframe failure? Because I feel like that's what you've done, is you've reframed it.
I think it's 2-part. One, failure is okay. I think there's a lot of times we want to soften things or sort of disguise things that they aren't what they are. Like, sure, we can create like a failure and turn it into an opportunity. I'm all for that, like positive mindset. But I think like a little bit of that is okay. And the way that I like navigate that then is depersonalizing things. Like, it's not my fault, or it's not your fault, or it's like, this thing happened, and how do we want to deal with it? And for me, depersonalizing it takes some of like the emotional aspects out of it, or where I make it about me, because sometimes I don't need to be so self-centered. It really isn't about me. I'm not exclusively responsible for this thing happening, but I am responsible for deciding where we want to take it, or how we want to, what we want to kind of like reap from whatever didn't go our way. Yeah. So yeah, depersonalizing it helps me. Okay.
How do you depersonalize it?
Mm-hmm. Take the I out of it.
Okay. Yes.
Replace it with a like this. This happened. This is where it went wrong. And like, where do we want it to go?
Yes. I think that's really helpful.
It helps with like victim mentality. It can really help with a lot of those kinds of things.
Yeah, no, I think that's so helpful. It's not about you all the time, so don't make it about you all the time.
Yeah. And sometimes people don't like that.
No.
But it's like, hey, it's almost like not a pass, but it takes it, for me, it's mobilizing to handle it in that way. So sometimes we need to take action to move through some of these things, and allows me to take action without being like paralyzed and like, I failed this, I did this wrong, Yeah. I don't need that.
Like it's not everything's your fault.
Right.
Because not everything's about you.
Right.
So that's actually a healthy place to like breathe in. It's like, oh, take that oxygen in for a second.
Sure.
Oh, okay, cool.
Right.
Like, it's just not about me. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, I think that's so healthy. As you have this place, I know you're packing it up, you're done. It's like, oh, you've made it. You've put your flag in the ground, your stake. You're in a cool spot right off the highway. So what are you going to do with retirement? It's like, okay. So obviously you're not done.
Yeah.
You've got so much left in the tank. I believe you are somebody, and I'm hearing that you are somebody that's like, I wonder what's possible. Mm. And as you dream and as you think, where's all this headed, do you think? Or what are you getting passionate about in the future, or excited about, or dreaming about? What does that look like for you?
Well, thanks for believing in me and seeing the vision. It's kind of two-part. One is when we first started to build, nurture, and raise capital, and the idea was like, we're not going to go through all of this work, because there's always so much preparation before things like come together. It's not like the snap of the finger like we were talking about earlier. And so the idea is like, well, we're not going to do all of this just to do it once. Once we have our playbook, then we scale. Like we believe that nurture belongs in more places. Yeah. That's growth. More of them. Like, so it's that. And it's also like, how can I design and create a business and a team where I get to embody my values, which my number one value is quality time with my family. Like I can't work 100 hours a week. And it took that. I did that for a long time. And I wasn't embodying what I was bringing to my community. I was suffering, like not sleeping, not eating, like cognitively indecisive, couldn't lead a team that I wasn't embodying what I wanted to bring to the community. So now I'm always filtering that through my value system, because growth doesn't always have to be like more and these things. It needs to be like, how can I live the way that I want to live my life on a daily basis while grow interpersonally in my friendships? Because work isn't everything. Oftentimes people don't like to hear that. Yeah. Was it my primary focus for about 17 hours a day for a few years? It was. I'm not proud of that. I don't hang my hat on that. Like the real flex now is being at the bus stop at 3 p.m. to pick up my son.
Yeah, that is
doesn't mean flex. Mean that the work day is over at that time, but flexibility like that to me is success. Being able to manage my own time with people that believe in me and I believe in them, so that we can get to do the things that we want to do. That to me is success and growth.
Oh man. Yeah, that is so good. That is so good. I love that that's a value. And I love that you are, you're very real about that. As you think about the future, what's a really important question to be asking yourself as you move forward? What's a question that's really important, or it's a new question, or it's a continual question that you just keep making sure that you keep in the forefront?
Can I have two?
You can have as many as you want.
Oh, thanks. One is continuing to keep time at the forefront of my mind, because we're not, immortals, at least in the way that my life looks and feels today. And meaning like being able to be with my son as he grows up and build my relationship with my partner and my friends, and like letting it mean so much, and relishing in time. So how do I want to spend my time? And I budget the heck out of my time. I budget it down to like the 30 minutes every day, so that I get to do the things that I want to do in a way that is meaningful to me, nobody else, but to me, which is like that audit of my values every day. And my values change, and letting them change is important, because sometimes I'm like, well, I want this other thing, but it doesn't like go through these things. And like, rather than resisting it, it doesn't change every day, but does it change every couple of years? Sure. But I change every couple of years. So of course my values need to, but like my core anchor of like quality time with you, quality time with my teammates, that quality over volume is really important to me. I forgot my other one now. So
it's okay. How am I going to budget my time?
Yeah.
I think very few people are thinking about that, which I think is really important for me to reflect on. I think it's important for everyone to reflect on, because you cannot get that back. You can, I've heard like billionaires, 100 millionaires, whatever, say, I would go back to before I had money. I would spend all of the money I currently have to go back 20 years, to go back 15 years,
you can't
to go
buy
back 10
time.
years, because you can't buy it. You can always re-earn it or earn it again or whatever.
Sure.
But you cannot get more of it.
Right.
Which is so good. And as you ask that question, what's a quote or let me ask this. What's a new habit or something that you're learning right now that's really important for us to maybe even think about? Is that something that we need to be learning? What's something that you're learning right now?
Something I'm learning right now. So I'm actually learning a couple of things. One I'm learning is, when you talk about time and impact, is the latter. Is if I am this passionate about living like in a value embodied life, how can I serve other people in that way? So I'm working on how I can do that. Because I've supported I live in Boulder, and supporting kids at CU, students in that way, trying to find, their way. Mothers, find their relish in motherhood, rather than in a society that's I'm bringing up too many things that probably can't be answered succinctly now.
No, it's good.
But helping people, creating time and spaces when I'm learning to do to how I can share ways that I can have impact on people, if that makes sense. Yeah. And in a learning way, it's learning again how to manage and budget time, and knowing that there's that just how you want to contribute to your community in and outside of your business or your neighborhood, or maybe in your neighborhood, or something like that. That's not a quote like you asked for, so I broke the rules.
No. It was. I actually changed the question. I was gonna say what's your favorite quote, but I really wanted to know what you were learning right now, because I feel like if you're learning it right now, it's probably gonna be really valuable for others to learn right now, which is you practicing what you just did, right? It's what I hear you saying is, how can I give away what I've come to know?
Yeah, sharing your gifts.
Yes.
Like sharing your gifts. And sometimes I'll be honest, I get too boundaried with time, or thinking I don't want to, because, you learn how to hold boundaries, and then sometimes the walls get too hard, and then you're like, well, wait a second. And so it's well, hang on. People have been so willing to help me and give their time. Time is never ending. And so finding reciprocity in that, and then making sure my day is designed in that way. Cause I have this sometimes this bad habit, if you will, of like stacking. Cause I want to like make sure it all happens, but then there's not room for like that depth and sharing and contributing. So that's something that I'm learning and relearning, is how to like have those meaningful exchanges, find ways to support and to be supported while doing the things that I want to do.
Kelly, that's so good. I look forward to more of this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
My gosh.
You asked great questions.
Thank you. It was such a good conversation. I learned so much. Whether anyone else learned anything from this, I believe so many people can, specifically if they want to grow hospitality industry or just creatively or future-wise. You took a lot of years to get to where you are today. And I think it's just going to be exponential for you.
Thank you.
Just your future, family, your son, just all of the stuff. I'm really excited for you.
Thanks.
And I was before, and now I'm like huge fan.
Thanks.
Huge fan of what you're doing here and just everything that's coming through your life. So if somebody wants to learn more about Nurture, get connected maybe with you or what's happening here, how do they do
that? Nurture's website, Nurture's Instagram. I'm also launching a way to like work more so with me in terms of collaborating on starting their own businesses. I've done that in like a mentor collegiate space, and now I'm bringing that more to people that I am helping on a daily basis, putting more structure behind that. So that'll be another way to get
awesome. And then do you care to give the handle on the website really quick?
Yes, it's Visit Nurture is the Instagram handle, and visitnurture.com is the website.
Perfect. Easy.
And then my information somewhere in there.
Yeah, just go to visitnurture.com or at visitnurture on the IG. Again, appreciate you. Let's go. Full Vantage Podcast, Kelly Campbell, Nurture. It's amazing to see what you've done and where you're headed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. See you later.
Thank you.